April 30th, 2026. We are in the 5th year, day 66 since the beginning of the full-scale invasion. Welcome to the Situation Report. In today's report, we will once again look at attacks that took place overnight. We will also look at more statements from the Russian side, and we'll take another look at how things are shaping up for the parade on May 9th, as well as much more. A viewer has put together a pretty cool tool for me, which will really help me with streaming, or rather, will actually benefit all of us. Stay tuned, because I'm already considering starting another stream this weekend. During the stream, we can review the territorial gains. There won't be any territorial gains today because they're generally very, very rare on both sides. But I think that in the stream on the weekend, I can summarize all the territorial gains of the entire week in, I think, under 4 minutes, because it's really not much. But there are many other interesting pieces of information, because more than 24 hours after the first drone attack on the oil pipeline near Perm, the situation continues to escalate, and that's within the Russian oil infrastructure. According to reports, there was another serious drone strike at an important pumping station, again near Perm. This means the damage is apparently much greater than initially assumed. Recent footage from the site paints a stark picture. The situation is escalating as the facility is once again in flames, and flames are shooting meters into the sky. The situation seems out of control. By the way, the governor of the region writes that a hostile drone landed on the facility. Yes, it landed there. It didn't fly in, and it didn't hit the facility either. It landed there. He also writes that there were no casualties or significant damage. Yes, you can see that too? There's nothing to see here except a major fire. Such pumping stations are a crucial part of the energy supply. They ensure that oil can be transported over long distances. If such a facility fails, it can have effects far beyond the immediate region. The fact that even a day after this attack there was another explosion due to a renewed drone strike shows that the Russians couldn't even extinguish the fire before the next attack took place. The images speak for themselves. And if we compare this with the recent attacks of the past weeks, for example, Tuapse, or really any attack on an oil depot or port, a pattern emerges, because the Ukrainians are moving away from just hitting as many Russian facilities as possible and temporarily damaging them or reducing their capacities. In addition, they want to completely destroy entire facilities, and we see that here with the double or triple strikes. Tuapse was a very good example. They were able to destroy almost the entire facility within a month with 3 attacks. And the Russians couldn't do anything about it. And we can see the same thing here with the next facility. I think this trend of multiple attacks will simply continue until it is destroyed. The Russians also aren't able to gather enough air defense forces to protect all the facilities. After attacks on energy facilities in Russia's Perm region, a local resident voiced frustration and concern over the return of war to everyday life. The region is deep in the hinterland, far from the front, which had not lessened the perception of the conflict. The reactions show that for many Russians, the war stayed abstract for a long time and, aside from death notices, rarely felt personal. Most even benefited from it. Only through direct impacts, such as attacks on infrastructure, does this attitude noticeably change. The conflict becomes more tangible and loses the character of a distant event. This is relevant to the overall situation because such incidents have the potential to shift societal perception within Russia. If the war increasingly spreads to their own territory without a single Ukrainian soldier ever having to set foot there, it can undermine the previous level of acceptance and at least lead to more questioning. At the same time, it becomes clear that criticism arises less from a fundamental rejection of the war and usually only increases when people's own security, daily reality, or standard of living are affected. A quick update in between. I talked to some people from YouTube and they said that the algorithm classifies my channel as a highly specialized channel covering the war in Ukraine. It might sound good, but it isn't. Because of this, my content is only shown to people who explicitly deal with this topic. That also explains why some viewers who don't just watch Ukraine situation reports haven't been shown the situation reports in other videos in the past, or why the reach has generally been extremely limited. You can see it yourself. Almost no new subscribers, almost no new viewers. In the end, the channel basically consists of the old core of regular viewers. So I need your help. For years, I've provided a daily report for free. Now you can give something back to me. Not because you absolutely have to, but rather because you would want to. Because I'm stuck under an algorithmic restriction. The only way to get out of it is by making videos that have nothing to do with the events in Ukraine or the situation report. Yesterday, I uploaded such a video. Please feel free to check it out again later. As far as I know, the algorithm crew is doing their best. As always, the more people watch this content, the faster I can get out of it, and the faster the channel will recover as well. Because if there aren't large numbers of new viewers, the channel won't be economically viable in the long run. So please also watch the videos that have nothing to do with what's happening in Ukraine. Support me in that regard as well. That's why I want to thank you again for your support. The new video is, as always, linked in the end credits. Ukrainian drones attacked the Russian region of Nizhny Novgorod. In the process, the Sverdlov plant was attacked and also hit. This is one of the largest explosives producers in Russia, with over 100 years of history and central importance for the arms industry. The attack is relevant because it wasn't just any industrial facility that was hit, but a significant Russian explosives producer. The materials produced there are important for filling artillery shells and heavy aerial bombs. A hit on the facility directly affects Russia's ability to produce ammunition on a large scale and to materially sustain the war. Here, a Ukrainian kamikaze drone strikes a vehicle that is at a Russian checkpoint. Take a look at its shape. This is a Ukrainian clone of the Russian Lancet drone. The Ukrainians have named it Bulava. I know I often criticize Russian technology. Most of the time, it's absolutely justified. But so far, I haven't been able to say a bad word about the Lancet. This is really a good piece of drone technology which has been adopted by Ukraine as well as other Western defense companies, and definitely not without reason. During a public appearance, Putin was presented with a fragment of a pipeline through which Russian soldiers tried to advance into the area around Sudzha about a year ago. That was the area which the Ukrainians captured in the Kerch region. The Russians have already used pipelines several times to get into Ukrainian cities or behind Ukrainian fortifications. Twice successfully, for example, also at Avdiivka over a year ago, and then at another location near Chasiv Yar. And both incidents showed that the Russians managed to bypass Ukrainian positions using pipelines and then attack them from behind. Of course, this shouldn't happen a third time. The Ukrainians discovered this pipeline and secured it with barbed wire and also with booby traps. At the same time, there were still gas residues in some pipelines, which quickly left many Russian soldiers disabled. And the Ukrainians also controlled this pipeline, more or less. That advance at the time ended with significant losses for the Russians, after the Ukrainian forces were able to stop the enemy units at the facility. However, what is remarkable is the different portrayal of this event. While Russian bloggers close to the military retrospectively classified the operation as a clear failure, it is now portrayed in the official narrative as a success, or at least as a remarkable operation. This matters for evaluating the situation because it shows a deliberate reinterpretation of military events. Setbacks are reinterpreted in retrospect in order to maintain a consistent image of military capability. This underscores the importance of information control and narrative building in Russia's wartime discourse, especially in operations that were originally perceived as failures. Ukraine continues to increase pressure around the Kerch Bridge, this time directly on the water. Ukrainian naval units have specifically targeted Russian boats that were used to secure the bridge. The focus was on patrol boats of the Sowol and Grachonov classes, among others. These units are a central part of the bridge's security concept. They monitor the area, secure access routes, and are meant to detect attacks early or prevent them. However, this protection is increasingly under pressure as a clear trend emerges. Ukrainian attacks on air defense systems in Crimea are also having an effect, while at the same time the Kerch Bridge is now coming under heavy fire. Actually, that's not accurate. The units near the Kerch Bridge are under heavy fire. These structures are gradually being weakened, which is changing the situation. If both the air defense over Crimea and the security on the water decrease, the entire defense around the bridge is under attack. By now, a 30-kilometer-long traffic jam is said to have formed at the closed bridge. The current state of the war can be clearly seen in several parallel developments that reflect both the military situation and the internal condition of Russia. On the Russian side, there is a growing vulnerability of the hinterland. The fact that even symbolically important events like the military parade on May 9th can apparently now only take place in a limited form or amid extreme security concerns indicates that Ukrainian attacks deep into Russian territory are now being taken seriously. They now also want to completely shut down the internet in the region around Moscow. On May 7th, 8th, and 9th, especially mobile data, so that Ukrainian drones cannot navigate in the area. Many Ukrainian intelligence agents no longer have access to public cameras or Wi-Fi interfaces, which they have used in the past to spy on targets like Russian generals, who were then attacked shortly afterward. And they simply want to prevent the people from being able to coordinate in case there is some kind of attack or any public unrest against Putin or the Kremlin. At the same time, attacks on energy infrastructure and oil depots are increasing, which is putting economic and logistical pressure on Russia. Political and economic tensions are also intensifying, even when measures such as possible interventions in private savings are discussed by the Russian leadership, which indicates increasing financial pressure from the war, especially in the banking sector. At the same time, moves toward a ceasefire, even if they are only tactically motivated, seem like an indication that Russia is at least seeking relief in certain situations. Because Putin requested Trump's support for a ceasefire with Ukraine on May 9th militarily, the situation remains difficult for Ukraine. It remains under enormous pressure at the front and has to use its resources efficiently. However, it's clear that long-range attack and asymmetric warfare capabilities have expanded. Attacks on targets far behind the front, as well as on critical infrastructure, are a sign that they are not only acting defensively, but are also actively trying to weaken Russia's war capabilities, and not even at the front. Overall, the picture is therefore mixed. Ukraine is under heavy strain and fighting under difficult conditions, but is still able to achieve targeted effects. Russia, on the other hand, is maintaining military pressure, but is increasingly facing security, economic, and domestic political challenges that result directly from the course of its own war. Before we wrap up, thanks to all subscribers, channel members, and the Allguard crew. Special thanks to Lieutenant Colonel Renica and Selective Ferdy Meyerhofer. Subscribe, like, comment, and see you in the next Situation Report.